This week we'll be talking about the Wackos in Waco, the story of David Koresh and the Branch Davidians. Welcome to Cult of Podcast. All right. Welcome to the Cult of Podcast. Thank you for joining us. So this week we're talking about David Koresh and the Branch Davidians, and this story begins with Victor Hutaf.
Should introduce ourselves, I think.
Maybe, yeah.
Tell them your name. Who
My
are you?
name's Scott Coffin, and this is my co-host.
I'm Brendan Knippenberg.
All right. So where do we begin? Victor Hutaf. He's born in Bulgaria. He's the founder of the Branch Davidians. So he joined the Seventh-day Adventists, which, if you don't know who the Seventh-day Adventist is, they're basically believing in the second coming of Christ and coming soon.
They're like a Christian religious group who is more gung ho about it, right?
Exactly.
Okay.
So they're ready for things to get going anytime soon. So Victor Hutaf, he came from Bulgaria and he moved to California, where all good cults start.
Yeah, of course, yeah.
In the Roaring 20s, and he started a candy business selling health sweets.
Health sweets.
These were health sweets candies.
Health sweets candy, like hey, if you eat my candy, you'll never get sick again.
You'll never get sick, and you'll be healthy, and I swear you won't get fat and get diabetes.
Oh my god, dude! If this guy wasn't crazy, he'd be my favorite.
So, he wrote the Shepherd's Rod, and it was a call for reformation. And basically, his church members decided that it was heretical, and they kicked him out. But Victor decides he wasn't going to leave and began preaching to the congregation and released a statement. And he gathered a following, and this is when he fled to Mount Carmel, Texas, just outside of Waco, and started the Davidian Seventh-day Adventist Church. So then we find the death of Victor. They've been worshiping for about 20 years in Waco, and could you guess how Victor died?
I'm gonna guess diabetes.
Not diabetes.
Okay.
A heart attack.
Okay, yes. Close enough. That was
all those health sweets.
That was gonna be my second guess.
So Victor dies, 1955, heart attack. Mm-hmm. His wife begins claiming that the end is near. His wife Florence.
That is a quick escalation.
Yes. Husband dies. World's ending.
Yeah.
So based on the book of Ezekiel, Florence claimed that all evil men would be slain, and following the disappointment of all evil men not being slain, we see Benjamin Rawdon come in and take over the group. And so Benjamin Rawdon, obviously upset that the world wasn't going to end, took over Mount Carmel. He writes a note that was told to him by God, and he signs it the Branch because he's actually too afraid to hand over this note. And he claims that the note says that he's the reincarnation of King David, and so that's a biblical reference. So he's claiming to be a King David, which we'll see later with David Koresh also claiming to be King David.
King David, like reincarnated.
David, yeah.
Okay.
So
wait, who are they handing this note over to?
the church, like he hands it over to the Seventh Day, the Branch Seventh Day Adventists, and then he takes over. He's basically like, hey, take this. I'm taking over now. This is a letter from God that says I'm in charge.
I got you.
So he's married to Lois Irene Scott, which will become important, and father to George Roden, will become important. So they have a great time with the church, I guess. They nearly 20 years of worship, so the end still hasn't come after 20 years of worshiping.
Okay.
So he ends up dying in 1978 and gives control to his wife Lois. So she's head of the branch from 1978 to 1986. World still hasn't ended. She kind of has a feminist agenda, saying that the Holy Trinity of the Father, Son, the Holy Spirit, saying that the Spirit part of the Father, Son, the Holy Spirit is a feminine structure. So at that time, she kind of like pushed a bunch of people away, saying that like part of the Holy Trinity was feminine. And her son actually ended up challenging her for the throne of Mount Carmel.
Really? Wow. Okay.
In 1979, but she didn't give up. She won the fight, I guess. Like sword fight at Mount Carmel for the throne.
Had a trial by combat against your child
for the throne of Mount Carmel. So then we see the introduction of Vernon Howell in 1981. And he quickly becomes romantic with Lois.
Okay.
Vernon claimed that God told them to have a romantic relationship and that their son would be the chosen one.
So Mount Carmel at this point, is it just this group of religious people, or is it like a city?
It's just a compound.
It's just the compound already.
I mean, there's probably city of Mount Carmel. It's a small town outside of Waco.
Okay, but we're talking about a compound at this point.
Yeah, we're talking from the beginning.
Okay,
like
I got you.
Victor moved from California with his band of loonies, and started the compound.
I got you. Okay.
So, after claiming that their son would be the chosen one, Vernon challenged her authority in 1983, but I already told you she's head of the branch till 1986. Obviously, he loses. George Roden also had challenged her and lost. He left for an unknown amount of time, and then came back, left some more, came back, challenged her. I guess not really challenging her anymore. Maybe he did end up winning this trial by combat, but his mother died in 1986, and George Roden, her son, takes over the compound, Branch Davidians. At this time, he gives a tour of the compound, calling it Rodenville, and pointed to different, different features on the compound using an M1 carbine. So he's just walking around the compound with his gun. With this
is an automatic rifle, isn't it?
It's not. I mean, from my Call of Duty experience, it's semi-automatic.
A semi-automatic rifle. I mean, that's still. He has a semi-automatic rifle just casually chilling on his arm,
pointing stuff out in the middle of the video. But this is Texas. This is Texas.
Yeah.
But that's all we'll need to know about him for now. So,
and this isn't just Texas. I don't know how much everybody knows about Waco, but like the actual city of Waco has a school, so it's like kind of developed. But everywhere around it is like bumfuck nowhere, Texas.
Unless you go like an hour and a half, 2 hours, and you're in Dallas again.
Yeah.
But even still.
But the in between, there's nothing there. Yeah.
Nothing. So now we get to Vernon Howell. Vernon Howell is actually David Koresh, but we're going to take you back to his childhood before we get back into it. So he was born to his 14-year-old mother, Bonnie Sue, and Bonnie's mister abandoned them, and Vernon never met his father. they start to live with a violent alcoholic who we assume beat Vernon and his mother, and he was actually beaten by his mom on his birthday at his birthday party.
Wow. So
we can tell that he's already had a rough childhood to begin with.
Yeah. He's
also dyslexic, bullied at school, reportedly gang raped when he was 8 years old. He's beaten up a lot and dropped out of Garland High School in the 9th grade.
Jeez.
Yeah, so rough childhood for him. But he had an affair with a 15-year-old girl. She later became pregnant, and he abandoned them in order to pursue his passion for the Bible. So he finds the Seventh-day Adventist Church, not Mount Carmel, by the way, not the compound, not the branch yet.
But he finds the main line.
Yeah, the Seventh-day Adventist. Yes. Yeah. He falls in love with another woman. It is the pastor's daughter, and he claimed that God presented her to him through a verse in the Bible and said that God wished him to take her as a wife. And at this time she's young. He's past 18 at this point. But the pastor wasn't having it.
Yeah.
You're not marrying my underage daughter. God didn't tell you to do that. Get out of here.
He's like, no, that's my job.
I'm the pastor here. So ends up kicking him out, and this is when he moved to Waco after failing to start a record label. So we see this it's kind of an often thing with cults. Like Marilyn Manson wanted to start a record label, wanted to become a famous musician.
Really?
Failed. Yeah, he used most of his influence to try and start a music career. But we'll get to that.
But record label being like a link between
cult leaders.
Yeah,
I guess it's just they're obviously charismatic people. Because they're leading cults here.
You definitely need to be very charismatic to get anything like this to work.
to not only like be like a top man in the cult, but to be the top man.
Be top man. Yeah, like the top man. Like I can't imagine just being like, oh, you know what I should do? Record label.
Well, I mean,
like if you've got
rock stars they're charismatic.
No, they are. Don't get me wrong, but like, I can't imagine that being like the best. This is the best use of the skill set I have. Record label.
And instead, let's start a cult.
Go to Wall Street. Go to Hollywood. Fucking finesse your way in on some shit.
Be a car salesman.
Yeah, be a fucking car salesman. Just go to your shitty job, sell your shitty cars, go home, get drunk like the rest of us, and then just go to fucking bed. Like, dude, come on. You make so much money.
No need to start a cult.
No need to start a cult, dude. This is unnecessary.
So he moved to Waco. He meets Vernon at Mount Carmel. Becomes intertwined with Lois, like we already said. Claims that they're going to have a child together. He's going to be the chosen one. Lois starts allowing him to give a bunch of sermons at the compound, and starts to begin taking the name David Koresh. George Roden obviously thinks he's heir to the throne. His father was the pastor before, his mother was the pastor before, and it's his turn.
Yeah.
But he becomes very upset with David taking his spot, and called him an interloper and kicked him off the compound at gunpoint. So he got him out of there.
Was it with the
M1 carbine?
With the M1 carbine, yeah.
Probably, yes. Just poking him with the end of the barrel. Yeah. Get out of here.
Get the fuck out.
But at this time, Vernon had taken a wife, Rachel Koresh, and moved him and his followers to Palestine, Texas. So that's like about an hour east of Waco. And Rachel, from what I believe from my research, she was underage at the time.
Okay. How old is Vernon at this point?
I can't quite remember. I believe he's in his 20s at this point.
Okay.
But Rachel is definitely underage, asks her father approves, and they go and get married. So he's married to his underage wife at this point, his first wife.
So the dad is saying, yes, my underage daughter, marry this man who just got kicked out?
Yes, because he's a follower of Vernon, of David Koresh, not George Roden.
Oh, because
So
he thinks the guy shouldn't have been kicked out, and like he is
and
that.
And he is the Messiah.
Yeah. Okay.
So he's
okay.
like, man, yes.
So he's like, yeah, go for it. Like, no, get me in on that shit. He's excited about this.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Okay.
He wants his daughter to be married away to the chosen one, to the Messiah.
Oh, God.
So they move into Palestine, Texas, and they're just kind of sleeping in tents and a school bus,
of course,
and they're not really. They're kind of bumming it. I mean, it's the end of the world though, so like this is normal.
My earthly possessions do not matter.
Exactly,
I will be rewarded.
Exactly. So while his followers are just hanging out in Palestine, he begins to travel to the UK, Australia, Israel, and he starts recruiting for his group. But at this time, George he's losing hold of Mount Carmel. Like the numbers are slipping.
Really?
And he comes up with a master plan.
Uh-oh.
Yeah. He's going to demonstrate his spiritual supremacy by challenging David Koresh to raise the dead. So George Roden defiles a grave, digs up a body, and sends this challenge to David. Instead, David's actually smart, unlike George.
Okay, yeah.
He decides to report him to the police.
Oh my God.
But he needs photographic evidence. The police aren't just going to go investigate a body that's been dug up for whatever reason.
Okay.
Yeah, so maybe there's some previous conflict here and they realize like these dudes are crazy. Like he's just, no one's going to dig up a body. So they tell him he needs photo evidence.
Who would just, that's a create a grave like that? Like,
especially for a challenge, as a spiritual challenge.
A spiritual challenge for rights to be leader of the cult.
Yeah. So he needs photo evidence. So David goes to Mount Carmel with 7 of his followers, armed with guns. They have Uzis, rifles, wearing ghillie suits.
Oh, Christ.
And they're going there to get photographic evidence without a camera. They didn't bring a camera with them. So obviously they don't care about getting their photographic evidence.
No, fuck no, they don't.
They're just there to retake Mount Carmel by force. But they're spotted.
These are the people. Okay, so these are the people who got kicked out, followed the guy, were living in tents and in buses, and then he started traveling.
Yeah.
And so was he still provoking the guy who was still in charge?
I mean, I guess so, because they're losing numbers.
Oh, they were losing numbers to him?
Most likely,
okay, yeah.
Because they're still very nearby.
So he calls him out.
And he's like, hey, raise the dead. And
so their answer is march on this bitch with huge numbers and lots of weapons.
Not necessarily huge numbers. They got 8 guys there, including David.
Oh, I thought you said 700. I was like,
no.
Fuck.
They got 7 followers.
Okay,
a couple Uzis and some rifles.
Okay.
And they're in ghillie suits going for photographic evidence without a camera.
Yeah, okay.
So it's more of like it's a special ops mission.
I got you. Okay, so it's a small, close knit group.
Yes,
not some huge army like I had in my head.
But so they're spotted, and a gunfight breaks loose, and George Roden gets pinned down and wounded as the sheriff arrives. The sheriff takes them all to town, books them.
Mm-hmm.
George, obviously, he's in the clear. He's defending his property.
Yeah.
He's got the right to. But David and his followers, they go through the trial, and I guess David's last to go, but his followers end up being acquitted, and David decides to throw a celebration. Okay, at this time they did retake Mount Carmel because people realized like this guy's crazy.
Yeah,
like, he dug up a body.
Yeah,
yeah.
So now David's in charge of Mount Carmel.
Yeah,
Okay.
but so at this point, his followers won the trial, and David throws a celebration.
Can't imagine you would get away after
invading someone's property.
Invading someone's property with
and starting a gunfight.
Automatic weapons.
But David invites the jury to come to Mount Carmel for their celebration for ice cream. And this actually leads to a mistrial for David and allowing him to go back to Mount Carmel and take complete control. So a mistrial by ice cream.
Wow. Do you think that was
an ice
planned?
cream Sunday party.
Do you think he planned that?
Oh yeah.
Yeah,
I mean, he's last up and he's like, oh my guys got off free. Let's go back and have a celebration. Let's do this. Ice cream party at my house. So at this point he's taken over and following the destiny of his new name, David, and that biblical house of David, he begins taking many wives.
Okay.
He introduces the New Light doctrine, which absolves all marriages on Mount Carmel. So obviously there's no legal behind this.
No.
You can't just absolve marriages. but he absolves all marriages on the Mount Carmel property. And starts taking as many wives as he pleases, taking even his right-hand man, taking his wife.
Jesus.
So
Mr. Steal Your Girl.
Yeah. Mrs. Steal Your Girl, yeah. So when trying to explain this, why he took so many wives, many of the Davidians actually quote Psalms saying that the king's head must be anointed in oil. And by this, the Davidians that survived at the end of this meant that the head of his penis must be anointed in oil and takes all these wives. And that was his complete...
Oh my God.
That was his reasoning for all of this. Like, my head must be anointed in oil. Kind of crazy.
I mean, dude, fuck it. The people bought it. It's their fault. So they were like, yeah, okay, you can take her.
Which taking underage girls, all the women at Mount Carmel.
Yeah. Naturally.
And so there's rumors of this, which leads to some investigations by police. But they couldn't identify someone to complain. They couldn't get a complaint. So no one would speak up against him, so they just let it go. If you can't get someone to report him, then you can't.
You don't have a case without a victim.
Yeah, exactly.
You know, so it's like, what are they gonna do?
Exactly. So that nothing happens.
Yeah.
So that's his wives, his guns.
Oh.
So assuming the belief of the Bible, him and his followers believed that they would be called to fight on the side of the righteous as the world came to an end. So this led him and his followers, they began stockpiling guns and converting them into automatic rifles. They claimed that they were doing this as like a gun salesman, like they're going to gun shows and selling rifles. They obviously weren't selling the bump fired rifles.
No,
but they're selling guns, and that's how they're making all their money that's how they're keeping the compound alive.
So yeah, okay, so they're an arms traders basically at this point.
Yeah. Okay. So in reality though, he's brainwashed an army of God, and the ATF has received word of it. So
okay.
So before the raid, so they're suspected of stockpiling weapons. Official investigations begin in June 9th of 1992 after a UPS driver had a busted open package. And I've worked for UPS a number of times during like holiday season, just peak season. Packages like bust open all the time. Like They fall off the shelves in the car. They break. Packages get opened. If you don't want to take it, you don't have to. But this driver reports to the police that this busted package contains firearms, grenade casings,
holy shit,
and black powder. So they're not just stockpiling guns, they're stockpiling explosives. They're really preparing for a war here. So by the end of July, ATF agents had confronted the Davidians gun dealer, Henry McMahon. I can't pronounce his name. I can't do it. McMahon.
Yeah, McMahon.
McMahon. All right. So he tried to get them to talk to Koresh. And David Koresh offered for them to inspect their weapons. Obviously, he's going to hide their bump-fired rifles.
Yeah.
Like, he's not going to show them those ones.
You can look at our weapons, but only the ones I show you. Yeah. Don't do any digging. You won't like what you find. So, he offers to let them inspect their weapons, but Agent David Aguilera, he declined. No, I'm not gonna look at your guns because I know what you're gonna do. You're gonna hide the weapons. Yeah, okay.
Exactly like we just said.
This dude's smart.
Which they have an underground bunker, so like you can just throw those guns in there, and no one's gonna never know about it.
Yeah, of course not.
So the ATF actually begins surveillance in a house across the road from Mount Carmel, from their compound in Mount Carmel. They claim that they're students in their 30s. They got brand new cars. None of these cars are registered at the local college, and none of them indicate that they keep any sort of regular schedule, such as like classes or employment, because the cars are just there. They leave randomly. They come back randomly. There's no schedule to this. So it's obviously a pretty crappy stakeout to begin with. Yeah, they're not doing their job very well. But Robert Rodriguez, a member of the ATF, he assumed an undercover position within the compound. And while this isn't that important now, it's quite comedic later on. So, in February of 1993, the Waco Tribune, they began writing a report on David Koresh and the Branch Davidians under the assumption that it was going to be released after the raid, but the ATF couldn't give them a time date for the raid, like when they were expecting it to happen. Yeah. So they just went ahead and released it on February 27th. And here's the first paragraph. If you're a Branch Davidian, Christ lives on the threadbare piece of land 10 miles east of here called Mount Carmel. He has dimples, claims a 9th grade education, married his legal wife when she was 14, and enjoys a beer now and then. Plays a mean guitar, reportedly packs a 9mm Glock, and keeps an arsenal of military assault rifles, and willingly admits that he's a sinner without equal.
Jesus.
So
that is a call out.
A sinner without equal.
Yeah.
But he's the Messiah. So after this is released, the ATF is kind of forced to move on their raid. Yeah. Because like obviously things are getting hot at Mount Carmel. Like they got spotlights on them now.
Yeah, because now they're expecting it. So now you've got to move.
They're expecting something at least. But this is the biggest mistake of all. So on February 28th, the ATF prepared for the raid on assumption of possession of modified firearms with automatic capability. They're going in for a surprise raid on the compound after their morning mass or their ceremony or whatever you want to call it. The men would typically leave the compound at this time and go and perform yard work. But they didn't come out like normal. Why, you might ask? A KWTX-TV reporter had apparently gotten word that the raid was taking place.
Oh, fuck.
And was looking for directions to the compound. In his innocence, he asked a mailman for directions to the compound raid, and the mailman was none other than the brother-in-law of, you guessed it, David Koresh.
Oh, fuck.
But I mean,
The perfect idiot.
exactly,
Dude,
the perfect idiot.
Oh my god.
But he has a lot of brother-in-laws at this point.
Oh yeah,
So-
like okay. You can throw a dart at a dartboard, you'll hit one of them.
Yeah.
I didn't think about that.
So following this news, Koresh confronts our undercover agent Rodriguez, tells him about the raid, and that he had always known that he was an ATF agent.
Oh my god.
So not only were these guys doing a bad surveying job, but this undercover agent had obviously blabbed to somebody.
Yeah. Fuck, dude.
Like, oh yeah, I'm just here with the ATF. Oh, let me go tell David.
That's an interesting water cooler conversation. Like, so how was your weekend? Oh, well, you know, counted all the guns. Called my superiors. I'll be here soon.
Yeah. So, shocked that his cover had blown, he,
oh yeah, I'm sure.
he hightailed it out of there back to the ATF. So, even though they had now learned that their cover had been blown, they go ahead with it anyway. And at this point, all the ATF agents in the raid had their blood type written on their necks to facilitate speedy blood transfusions in case of a gunfight. So
wait, the ATF people?
The ATF people, yeah.
Holy shit.
So not only were these people planning on a surprise raid, but now that it had been spoiled, like,
yeah,
they got their blood type written on their neck, expecting a gunfight, which,
holy
considering
fuck.
you're going from surprise to, like, we're going to war right now,
yeah,
probably should have backed off. Like, come back another day. Come back
dude,
another day.
Call in the fucking bombers at this point. Just nuke the shit. Like,
But,
I can't imagine what has to be going through these people's heads. Like, Bill, what's your blood type?
oh, negative.
Oh, negative, dude. Are we gonna be okay? I don't know, man. Dude, I would.
Just write it
I
on
would.
with a
Yeah,
Sharpie.
I would not. Oh my god.
So, assuming the beliefs of the Branch Davidians, they obviously believe it's like the end is nigh, and they're starting a fight with, or they're fighting off the sinners. They're defending themselves, the righteous. They're defending themselves from the sinners of the world, and obviously the ATF represents these sinners that are coming to take them over.
Of course they are.
So ATF agents, they approach the compound, and they load up some ladders on the building, and they get up on the roof, and they're right outside of the arms room when bullets come flying through the wall.
Oh,
and
shit.
a all-out gunfight breaks loose. So at 9:45, a gunfight began.
AM or PM?
AM.
Okay.
So it's morning.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
9:45 in the morning, you just started a war with the ATF.
Christ. By firing through your wall.
I haven't even woken up yet.
Yeah. I gotta say though, that is actually, like, that is pretty badass. Like, you're in the arms room waiting, you're like, all right, I hear footsteps, just you just fire
Bullets
wildly
filing
above
through the
you.
ceiling,
Yeah. Holy shit, that's brutal.
So by 9:48, Wayne Martin, a Branch Davidian, he calls 911 from within the compound, stating that there's women and children in the building and that they need to call it off, that they need to get out of here.
Okay.
So
they're like, let us take all of our future people, like all of our women and children, move them somewhere else, and then we'll shoot at you.
yeah, exactly. But
guys, wait, we weren't ready.
doesn't quite work out like that.
No, I can't imagine.
At 11:30, a ceasefire is reached, on the condition that Koresh will give up if he's allowed to give a radio sermon. At this time, the ATF is like, they're recuperating, they're counting their losses. They're actually running extremely low on ammo, and it was pretty clear that the Davidians had plenty. So they give him his radio sermon, and he goes,
Oh, so they actually lucked out then.
hold on, let me tell the story here. So, running out of ammo, they give him his radio sermon. He gets on KRLD, gives his sermon, tells everyone that he's actually extremely injured. He's been shot in the stomach. Things aren't looking good for him. By 10 p.m., the FBI negotiated the release of some children, and David Koresh goes on KRLD again. And KRLD is it's
like a local radio station.
Yeah, but it's a religious radio. It's
okay.
They're radio pastors kind of thing.
Gotcha.
So at this point, it actually became clear that David Koresh wasn't coming out. He's not coming out. Not happening. So the FBI takes over, the ATF gives up their reins, and the hostage negotiation team shows up. And it turns into a 51-day siege on the Mount Carmel compound.
Mm-hmm.
So in the beginning, the Davidians actually had contact with the outside world. They're giving telephone interviews with local news stations. They're doing all kinds of stuff. But the FBI cuts it off. And they cut off their water supply and everything like that. And they actually start surviving off MREs and rainwater.
Christ.
So
wait, so
they're pretty thirsty in there.
Is this 51 days of like constant fire?
No,
or
it's
just
51
we have
days
guns pointed at you.
We've got guns pointed at you. You've got guns pointed at us. FBI has tanks kind of just roaming around the property.
So it's like kind of like a stalemate, but the FBI could fuck them up if they wanted to.
Yeah.
Okay, I got you.
So David again says that he's gonna come out if he can just do another radio sermon. But instead,
third time's the
charm. Instead, at this point, David declared that God told him that the group should remain inside the building.
Oh, of course.
So they don't come out, and the FBI is getting a little touchy. They're like, why? Like, come on, dude. Like, work with us here.
It's been 2 months, dude.
There's kids in there.
Come the fuck out here.
So the FBI sent in a video camera about halfway through. They start documenting the lives of the individuals inside the building. So everyone inside the building is actually pretty happy, cheery. Like,
really?
Yeah, he's looking a little pale because he got shot.
He got shot 2 months ago.
Yeah,
in the stomach.
He's looking a little pale.
Yeah. But I mean, all these people are. They're absolutely ready for the end of the world. This is what they wanted.
Yeah, exactly.
Like, if we die here, like, fuck it. This is what we wanted from the beginning.
We'll be rewarded.
Yeah.
We're going to heaven.
So yeah, they're all happy, cheery in there.
Yeah, and so there's interviews with all of his wives, all his children, all these people in there, and they're all
lying.
And they're all happy about it.
Okay.
Which was surprising to the FBI. They thought everyone was going to be miserable in there.
Yeah.
It's not gonna.
Could see the FBI being like, "Wait, this isn't working." Fuck.
Yeah.
Now what?
So, in those 51 days, the siege and the FBI, they developed into like two factions. So one assumed negotiations were gonna work, and the other one said that there was no possible way negotiations were gonna work, and they were gonna have to take aggressive tactics, and they were gonna have to raid Mount Carmel.
Someone in the FBI said that.
Yeah, so the actual group on site was splitting into two factions. Like, there's some people there that were like, we can do it with negotiations, and there's other people there that are in tanks, and they're like, we need to blow this shit up.
We're getting divisive politics here in Mount Carmel from the FBI.
So these aggressive tactics included sleep deprivation.
Oh, Christ.
So they got, I guess, blowhorns or whatever.
Yeah, shining lights, making noise.
But the noises that they're making, they're rabbits being slaughtered, loud pop music, and jet noises like flying over.
What year is this again?
This is back in 93, I believe.
So they're absolutely
93.
They're blasting what? Michael Jackson, Guns N' Roses.
Was it like any were the Backstreet Boys at this point?
No, that was late 90s, early 2000s.
Any NWA? You think they're blasting like?
No, I don't. Come out with your hands up. Fuck the police.
So, where were we here? So, These abrasive tactics. They got the pop music blasting.
Billie Jean keeping you up into the ass crack of the evening.
Oh yeah, jet noises.
Oh wow,
they're going all out with the noises.
Yeah,
here.
I
mean,
bet.
rabbits are being slaughtered for. I don't know if they're slaughtering them on site.
I don't know, but I know previously that rabbits like scream when they're in pain, like they're loud.
So there you go. You got
this
that
is actually fucked.
Billie Jean in your ear.
Oh my god,
you're not sleeping very much.
No, not at all.
The FBI is driving a crazy man crazier.
Oh yeah, okay.
So, Koresh begins to proclaim that he's the second coming of Christ in these negotiations. And he ends, even though he's going crazier, he lets 11 people go prior to the final assault. So 11 people go, and some of them get charged with like a attempted murder and conspiracy murder, stuff like that. So they're released and they go to trial. I can't exactly remember what happened with them, but
because they're getting charged for murder for firing back upon ATF and FBI
against federal agents. Yeah. So eventually, like, this is getting a little out of hand. It's been 51 days, and Attorney General Janet Reno approves a tear gas assault on the compound on April 19th, under the assumption that the possibility of mass suicide was growing real, and claims that an unorganized militia of the United States were en route to either aid or attack David Koresh.
And they weren't sure which one.
Oh,
no. Wow.
So things are getting out of hand at Mount Carmel, at the Branch Davidian compound. Things are wildly out of hand. This is all over the TV as well. Everyday update, like, how's it going at Mount Carmel on ABC Tonight, like world news.
Yeah,
like they're keeping up with this.
I can imagine. So
the Attorney General Janet Reno approves the tear gas assault on April 19th. So two tanks drive up to the building and ram the front of the building, and they eject tear gas from the, I don't know, the firing arm of the tank. So upon doing this, fires began breaking out all over the compound. The United States government claims that they didn't start any of these fires. People that survived the fire say that they weren't pouring gasoline or anything like that. They didn't start the fire. There was no intention of starting fires, but there's audio files that the FBI has of people pouring gasoline, but you know how the government is. Like,
wait, like FBI agents are pouring gasoline and starting fires?
No. They have audio. Somehow they have audio files from inside of the compound of Davidians pouring gasoline.
So like, fire just be like, "Fuck you guys."
Yeah,
you won't take us alive. We'll just burn to death.
Well, no, the God will protect them in the flames.
Oh yeah. I keep forgetting about how Jesus loves them.
The FBI is going to storm into a blazing compound, and they're going to
where
be
no one is
protected
harmed.
Yeah,
where no one is harmed.
None of the Davidians are harmed, but all these FBI agents just burn up.
The
and
FBI
go to hell.
will rush in and be like, "Oh wait, it's fire!" And the Davidians will be like, "Thank you, Jesus, for protecting me," and they'll be fine, in these massive flames.
Yeah, exactly. So, unfortunately, there's still a lot of kids in there. There's still a lot of women. There's still tons of people in there. 76 people end up dying in the blaze, and 9 people escape the fire. But at this point, Steve Schneider, David's right-hand man, realized that he was dealing with a fraud. So in the very end,
after
of
all of this,
I'm dealing with a fraud.
This guy's a Looney Tune.
Yeah, shoots David in the face, and then puts the gun on himself and kills himself. So 76 people died, 35 people left during the raid, and 9 people escaped the fires. So overall, it's pretty terrible loss of life for the people involved.
And so once David said, everything just collapses. Everyone's like, our leader's dead. Like,
and then the whole place goes up in flames, and they're not protected in the fire. Yeah. unfortunately.
Like, oh shit, people are dying in the fire. You were lying to us.
Yeah, exactly. And then he shoots him and then kills himself.
And then everyone's like, oh, well, FBI, please help. It was a prank, bro.
It's a prank.
It's just a prank.
So it doesn't end there, though.
Of course not.
Timothy McVeigh, the orchestrator of the Oklahoma City bombing, claims that he was motivated by the handlings of the Waco siege. So he already has like a distaste for the government, and seeing all these people die in this fire and believing that the government set fire to the compound, he blows up I can't remember the name of the building, but the Oklahoma City bombing.
Yeah.
And so that's another 169 deaths and 650 injuries of innocent people because of some crazy dude down in Waco.
No, I know all about that. I was born in Oklahoma City. I was a 6-month-old baby when that happened in Oklahoma City.
Yeah. So you guys.
My dad worked in the city. My mom tells that story. She's like, I was losing my mind. I didn't know where my husband was. Yeah.
That's nuts.
So that affected my family.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's pretty crazy. I didn't know that about you. Born in Oklahoma City.
I moved here when I was 2.
Okay. All right, but that about wraps everything up.
That is the Branch Davidians of Waco, Texas.
Wackos in Waco.
Yeah.
There you go. So if you find us on Podbean, Apple or Google Play or iTunes, make sure to leave a review or follow us.
Yeah.
And we'll see you next time as well, hopefully.
Thank you, everybody, for watching.
All right.
I hope you all enjoyed our Wackos in Waco. We will be doing this every week.
Wackos in Waco.
Yeah, we will be doing this every Thursday.